Before this story begins, take a second to hit that subscribe button right now, because the truth you're about to hear isn't just a story, it's a reminder that justice sometimes hides in plain sight. Click here to subscribe at the Untold struggle stories like this one. The sun beat down on the quiet suburban neighborhood of Maple Creek. Birds chirped, lawns gleamed, and yet, behind one modest blue-painted house at the end of the cul-de-sac, Mr. Elijah Carter stood frozen at his door. There it was. A bright orange notice taped to the wood, stamped Final Warning. Violation. Unapproved property changes. Failure to pay HOA dues. Possible lien. Elijah was 71 years old, a retired Army veteran. His hands trembled not from fear, but from anger and disbelief. He had served his country for 40 years, through storms and sand, and now, this homeowners association dared to threaten his home over a small flower garden his wife, Miss Loretta, planted to honor fallen soldiers. Inside, Loretta's voice trembled. "Eli, please, maybe just talk to them again." But Elijah's voice cracked with pain. "Talk to them? Baby, I fought for this country. And they can't even let you grow roses for your friends." Across the street, a luxury car idled. Inside sat Chad Morrison, the HOA's newest compliance officer, a sharpsuit, slick hair, and a colder smile. He whispered into his phone. Yeah, he's refusing to comply again. Might be time to escalate. He didn't realize those words would soon come back to haunt him. 2 days later, Elijah walked into the Maple Creek HOA hall, a glass-walled building that looked more like a courthouse than a community center. Chad and the rest of the board sat behind their long polished table. "Mr. Carter," Chad began, "you've repeatedly failed to follow neighborhood standards. Unauthorized decorations. Non-compliance with lawn care policies. And there's also unpaid fees." Elijah leaned forward, calm but firm. "Son, those flowers are for soldiers who didn't make it home. I don't owe you a dime for honoring them." The board murmured. Chad smirked. "I understand your sentiment, but the rules are the rules." From the back, a woman's voice broke through. Some rules weren't made for decency, they were made for control. Everyone turned. It was Maya Carter, Elijah's granddaughter, a young attorney fresh from law school. She carried herself with quiet strength, fire in her eyes. "This HOA has been selectively enforcing policies. My grandfather isn't the first you've targeted." Chad sneered. "And who are you?" "Someone who knows the law better than you think." The room fell silent. But when Elijah and Maya walked out, they didn't know someone else was watching them. From the shadows, an older man with graying hair, Harold Morrison, the HOA president, had heard everything. And his eyes were haunted. If you're still watching and your heart's already racing, pause for a moment. Stories like this happen more often than you think. Subscribe now and join a community that believes in truth, justice, and standing tall. Click at their Untold struggles because this story's only getting deeper. That night, Harold sat in his office long after the meeting ended. The room was quiet, just the ticking clock and the low hum of regret. He pulled open a drawer. Inside was an old photograph, 2 boys in army fatigues. One was him. The other was Elijah Carter. His voice cracked as he whispered, "You were right there beside me all those years." Harold and Elijah had served together decades ago, but after returning home, life had divided them. They lost touch, and fate had now reunited them as enemies in a suburban war. Meanwhile, across town, Maya gathered evidence, emails, letters, minutes from HOA meetings. She discovered a chilling pattern. The board had quietly been targeting elderly and minority homeowners with trumped-up violations. "They're forcing people out," Maya told her grandfather, "so property values stay in their control." Elijah clenched his fists. "Then we'll fight. With the truth." The next HOA hearing drew a crowd. Neighbors whispered as Elijah walked in with Maya beside him, strong, dignified, ready for battle. Chad leaned back in his chair, arrogant. "Let's settle this once and for all." Maya laid a folder on the table. "Before we do, these are internal emails showing discriminatory enforcement. And here's a recording of Mr. Morrison admitting to personal bias." Gasps echoed. Chad's confident grin vanished. Then Harold, standing quietly in the corner, spoke for the first time. "Enough." All eyes turned. "Mr. Carter, Elijah, I didn't know it was you. I've made a mistake. The room froze. Chad looked confused. "Sir." Harold's voice trembled but grew stronger. "This man saved my life. Twice. In a desert halfway across the world. And here I am, letting a petty rulebook dishonor that." He turned to Chad. "You're fired. Effective immediately." The board erupted. But Harold wasn't done. He removed his HOA president pin, walked over, and handed it to Elijah. "I think you should run this place instead." The audience applauded. Tears welled in Loretta's eyes. It felt like justice, at last. But something darker was brewing beneath the victory. Days later, a letter arrived at Elijah's home. Notice, HOA board decision reversed pending appeal. Chad had filed a complaint, claiming the hearing was invalid due to personal bias. And worse, local media twisted the story, painting Elijah as the aggressive veteran. Maya slammed the newspaper on the table. "They're trying to bury us in bad press." Elijah sighed, tired but unbroken. They can't bury the truth forever. Then came a knock. Harold stood outside, looking weary. "Chad's gone rogue," he said. "He's threatening to sue the entire board." But then Harold added something that changed everything. "And I just found out, here's my son." The room fell silent. Harold's face was a storm of guilt. "I didn't raise him like this, Eli. But he needs to be stopped before he ruins more lives." A month later, the case went to county court. Maya presented evidence, witnesses, and a heartfelt testimony from Elijah. Chad strutted in with high-priced lawyers, but his arrogance cracked under the weight of the truth. Then came Harold's turn. He took the stand, voice trembling. "I served with Elijah Carter. I owe my life to him. And it breaks me that my own blood, my son, tried to destroy his." He turned to Chad. "You've brought shame on our name." The courtroom was silent. The judge leaned forward. "This court finds in favor of Mr. Carter." Cheers erupted. Maya hugged her grandfather as tears streamed down his face. But as they left the courthouse, a black SUV idled at the curb. Inside, Chad watched them with cold, burning eyes. He whispered to his lawyer, "This isn't over." The camera would fade to black there, on Elijah's proud but cautious smile. The victory real, but the danger far from over. Clapperboard to be continued in Part 2.